Hi everyone, today I'm going to be showing you what our cut flower garden looks like in June. This is a brand new flower garden that we put in just last fall. The total size of the garden is about 8 feet wide and 15 feet long, and this is our first time growing flowers on this scale. We've run some drip irrigation out here just to supplement when we don't get enough rain, and we probably only run that about once a week. So I'm going to start on the right side of this bed. Our two rows are about 3 feet wide each, and this first section in the front on the right, we have some sweet peas. We have a vertical trellis for them because they like to vine upwards, and those have been blooming for the last month. They are so fragrant and dainty, and they are one of the first flowers to bloom in spring. Sweet peas aren't a super long-lasting flower in the vase, but they do smell really good, and we get so many stems that we're able to pick enough out here for a small bud vase every 3 or 4 days. This mix is a bouquet mix, and I got the seed from Botanical Interests. It has a nice mix of different colors. Most of them are pinks and purples. There's this one really cool variegated one that kind of looks like candy cane colors, and my favorite ones probably have to be these light purple lavender ones. I think they are so pretty. A lot of these peas are also starting to form their pods, and I'm just letting a few of those grow so that I can save these seeds for next year. One thing that I will note is that the aphids seem to really love these sweet peas, and since we are trying to keep this a no spray zone just so that we can invite all the bugs into this garden, good and bad, I have had to make sure that I shake off or rinse off any aphids on the flowers before we put them in a vase. I think it's always good to have a small amount of bad bugs in the garden because without them you're not going to have the good bugs like this ladybug that I found on the sweet peas, and ladybugs love to eat aphids, so without the aphids there, the ladybugs won't come to your garden. Next to the sweet peas, I have a couple of plants of honeywort. Those are just about fading. They are more of a cool weather plant. I just wanted to show how cool this foliage is. It has a really nice blue silvery color that's very unique, and it also has these small purple flowers. Most of those are gone, so the seeds are starting to form, and they just look really neat. They come out really easily once they're ready, and they've been falling all over, so I'm sure we're going to have some volunteer honeywort next year. The next part of the bed is filled with lots and lots of snapdragons. We both really love snapdragons, so I made sure to fill our cut flower garden with lots of different kinds. These are just starting to shoot up. They had a little bit of a setback with a cold snap that we had that was a little late in the year, but they are doing really well. You can see how bushy they are because I've pinched them while they were growing, and I have a video about how and why to pinch your flower seedlings, and you can just see how healthy they look and how many stems you get from one plant. For most of this garden, you can see that we've set up some flower netting just to support the stems as they grow, and those are set about 8 to 12 inches high. We have just a couple of blooms that have started, and I've also already cut a few for bouquets in the house. Snapdragons are such a good flower for the cut flower garden because as you cut them, they'll keep producing new stems, especially if you get a variety that produces well into the summer. There are so many colors to choose from, and I think I also planted some double varieties, so once those bloom, I'll be sure to post pictures of those. Next we have a little section of auric. This is actually technically a vegetable. You can see the leaves here kind of look like spinach and you can eat them that way. But if you let them grow and produce their seed pods, they look like this and they're really cool looking. There are different colors that you can grow to. I'm not sure what color this one is, but I just think they're really cool looking. The stems are really long and upright, and this just makes a really good like foliage filler type of thing for a bouquet. Next we have a couple of plants of status which are starting to bloom. This is another flower that's more of a filler flower, so it's really nothing too flashy. There are these purple ones that are just starting to bloom. I'm not sure if they open up a little more than this. They are kind of underwhelming, honestly, but I haven't used them in a bouquet yet, so maybe they will really shine. I will say that the stems are really long and there are lots of stems per plant, and there are also no leaves along the stem to strip off, which is really nice. I did also grow a mix of these from seed, but so far I only have yellow and purple, which is a little disappointing, but we'll see if I change my mind about these as the season goes on. The next plant that I have here is called Silene. I got these seeds from Floret. I think this is a pretty rare and unique kind of flower that I've never heard of before. From this little tiny bushy plant at the bottom, it forms these really long stems with dainty clusters of flowers that look a little bit like lanterns or bells. They add a really airy feel to a bouquet, and I have been sticking these in everything. You can pick them at any time during their bloom, I believe. That's what the packet says, at least. And I like how long the stems are with no leaves as well, just like the status. This is definitely a flower that needs support in place. Even with this netting, it's kind of leaning over, and I have some of these plants in the front garden and those are just completely floppy. Next we have a few plants of dianthus, also known as carnations. I have a couple of varieties and I'll put the names up here because they're in French and I'm not going to pretend to pronounce those. And those are just starting to bloom. Carnations are of course a very common and popular flower, and probably for a good reason because they have a really long vase life. I also never knew that carnations kind of smell like cloves, so that's kind of a unique thing that I only just learned. These first couple I think are the orange ones and they're really pretty, and there's also this pastel pink one which is so beautiful. This is probably one of my favorite kinds of colors for flowers. There's this one Japanese beetle on one of these flowers, so definitely had to get rid of that. These are the bane of our existence. I have a couple more plants of status thrown in here. This garden is kind of just a jumble of things because some things died and I just filled in spaces wherever, but you can see just how many stems are on these two plants of status. It's pretty amazing. Next we have some dahlias that I grew from seed. These were from a packet that I got from purchasing the new Floret Dahlia book. Nothing yet to report on these as they are still growing, but when you grow dahlias from seed, it's a mystery as to what you're going to get, so I'm pretty excited to see how these are going to turn out. In this back area here, we have a huge patch of white yarrow. You would never believe that these plants started as 6 tiny little seedlings with just a few little leaves each. I started them last fall and planted them pretty late into the season when it was pretty cold. They not only survived throughout the winter, but they started multiplying and created this wild full patch, and I am so happy about it. Yarrow is good for so many things. I know it has medicinal uses, although we don't use it for that. You can use it as a fresh cut flower and also as a dried flower. It's drought and deer tolerant, which is great because we do get deer sometimes munching on things back here. And with this little patch, I'm going to have enough for fillers for bouquets for the entire year. It's also great for beneficial insects because it is a cluster of small flowers, which lots of tiny little insects love. And we usually do see a lot of bugs buzzing around here. This little bare spot in between these two patches of yarrow was actually completely filled with yarrow as well. We had so much that we decided to pull some out and relocate it somewhere else in our garden because I wanted more space for other things. I planted some branching sunflowers here. They look a little bit sad because they were in their plug trays a little bit too long, but I think they'll bounce back since sunflowers are pretty hardy. We have more yarrow here, and I just want to note that even though yarrow does spread very easily, it was very easy to pull out. It's not like a weed that has really thick roots. It was pretty shallow and we were able to pull it out really easily, which is really nice. Back here we have a couple more sunflower plants. These ones are a little further along since I did succession plant our sunflowers. They're starting to form buds now. Now bouncing to the other garden bed, and I'm going to move backwards from here. We have some sunflowers. Again, these are just starting to bud up. By the way, I did mention that we have drip irrigation set up for this garden, but I didn't run the drip all the way to these back areas where we're growing the yarrow and sunflowers just because they are drought tolerant and they shouldn't need that supplemental water. I have a mix of single stem and branching sunflowers just to make sure I have something blooming at all times of the summer. This is a darker sunflower and you can tell from the leaves how it's going to have that darker color, which I think is really neat. We did have some deer munching on sunflowers back here because they really like them, but luckily they only got the branching sunflowers, so those will be perfectly fine. It'll be just as if they had a pinch and it'll just grow more stems from it. One of the branching types is this one here called Jade, and it's a white sunflower with a light center. Those are just starting to bloom and they are pretty, but the bugs also like to eat them, which is a little disappointing. So I'm not sure if we're going to be cutting too many of them for the house. Maybe we'll just enjoy looking at them in the garden. All of the sunflowers in our cutting garden are either pollenless varieties or low pollen varieties, and we're saving any of the more common normal sunflowers for our vegetable garden. Here we have a single pro-cut orange sunflower and it is so beautiful and perfect. This is the only one here because I actually already cut like 5 or 6 to bring into the house, and this was a late bloomer, so it's out here all alone. So far I am really impressed with these pro-cut sunflowers. I have a vase of them that's a week old in the house and it's still looking amazing. And I'm only specifically talking about the Pro Cut Orange here because on the other hand, I have this Pro Cut White Knight, which is a light one with a dark center. The bugs absolutely love it, and even though I think it's so pretty and I was really excited to grow this unique color variety, I don't think it's one that we're actually going to be able to cut for, just because even this young bud that is just starting to bloom has bug damage on it, so that's a little disappointing. I think this view of the sunflowers with the yarrow peeking through in the background is my favorite view of the flower garden right now. Next we have some cosmos, which are just about starting right here. They're starting to get tall and growing through that flower netting. I have a couple varieties. This one here I think is a darker one called Rubenza, and I also have a seashells variety that has fluted petals. Then I have a big stand of zinnias. If you're looking for just one flower to grow in your garden, whether it's your vegetable or flower garden, zinnias I think are the one. They are a really good cut flower. They produce all summer long and have a good vase life. These ones are just starting to form buds. As for the varieties, I believe all of these are the ones that I started in a video from seed where I covered all the different varieties. So I'll link that down below if you want to know what I'm growing. Next we have some lemon basil here. This is grown as a filler flower and foliage. It unfortunately did get killed back in that frost, and I'm not sure if this will stunt the plants for the season, but I just left them in here for now. They seem to be coming back alright, so I'll just have to see how big they're gonna get. I have a single celosia that survived that freeze, and I'm just leaving it because it is hot pink and such a little bright spot in the garden. Next I have a whole section of gladiolas. These are grown from bulbs, or technically they're corms, and I dug these up from last year and planted them here, and they're doing really well. No buds yet, but they will have blooms in the summer. I'm not 100% sure what this next section of plants is because the plant tag faded, but these are either straw flowers or gomphrena. Here's a little bud here, and I guess when it opens I'll just have to see what it is. Leave me a comment if you know what this flower is though. Next I have a couple of plants of feverfew. This is supposed to be a cool flower and I think it should have already bloomed by now, but they were a bit small when I put them out and were damaged by that frost. So hopefully they will still bloom in the summer. I have a couple more snapdragons that I just popped into any empty areas where things died. And then I have a bunch of plants of Chinese forget-me-not. These are such a cool flower. I always wanted to grow these when I was younger, and this is the first time I've ever done so, so that's a pretty exciting little thing. They're really unique because The color is such a true blue, which is very rare in flowers. I feel like this video doesn't even show how vibrant and blue they are in real life, and really it's just a cluster of all of these tiny little cute flowers. I think they're so pretty, and they pair really well with other flowers just to have that complementary cool color. I think especially with like yellow flowers, these are really nice. And this is what the buds look like. Next I have a couple of plants of dill. This is a variety that's specifically good for the big flower heads that it produces. I also have a couple of Yarrow plants, also known as Ami, I think. This is a purple flower that kind of looks like Queen Anne's lace. Next I have some decorative grasses. I have a bunnytails grass and a frosted explosion. I have to keep telling myself not to pull these out because they look like weeds and they are taking forever to grow, so hopefully they'll actually do something soon. Then we have some Bupleurum. Every flower book that I've read raves about Bupleurum and how awesome it is for floral arrangements, and especially if you're selling to florists. So I was really excited to grow this. It took a little longer than I thought it would to get started because I think this is supposed to be a cooler weather flower, but it is starting to bloom now and some of the stems are getting a little larger. And I got this shot of the sun setting behind and you can see all of those patterns in the leaves, and I think it is just such a magical shot of them that really shows off their understated beauty. They do have these tiny yellow flowers, but really this is grown mostly as a foliage crop. In this final area of this bed, I have another succession of cosmos and zinnias. These plants are super tiny and they've already started to bloom. This is a yellow variety called Xanthos. I think I may have stunted these plants a little bit by keeping them in their plug trays for too long, but I don't know, we'll kind of just see how it goes. They have lots of little buds on them, so hopefully they'll grow bigger as those flowers are cut off. In this last little zinnia patch, I did find one zinnia that's just starting to open. I believe this is a Queen Lime Red, and I'm really excited to see it. It's supposed to have a really unique vintage coloring to it, and there are lots of buds all over these plants as well. So that is it for our flower garden tour for June. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing this brand new garden and area of our homestead. Please make sure you subscribe to our channel and like this video if you want to see more content like this. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again in the next video.